Kehinde is our interim Head of Legal Services and also a Deputy Monitoring Officer. And this is his first meeting with us. So, Kehinde.
Thank you, Chair. Just a few key points to note about the meeting, please. In line with legal requirements, this meeting is being held face-to-face, but members and the public can only join online and participate at the meeting. It is only the councillors present that are taking the decisions at this meeting. Officers in attendance are here to provide advice to the council. The agenda and papers have been published on the council's website on 7th July 2025. This meeting will be live webcast, and the council will be making an audio recording of the meeting, and these will be published on the council's website in due course. There are no planned fire drills today, and in the event of a fire alarm, please follow the fire exit signs and congregate in the car park. If anybody present might need assistance in exiting the building, then please let one of the Democratic Services team know. If members in the room wish to speak, please raise your hand, and the Vice Chair and the Deputy Monitoring Officer, that's myself, will note your name, and when it comes to your turn, please use the microphone on the desk in front of you. For members joining the meeting virtually, please use hand facility in the Microsoft Teams, and the Chair will invite you to speak. Please only speak when invited by the Chair of the Council to address the Council. Members and officers should please say their name and role before speaking. Thank you.
Thank you, Kehinde. Right, if we can move into the agenda, item 1 is apologies for absence. So back to you, Kehinde, for the list, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chair. I have a list of apologies. First is Councillor Sola Ojila, and there's Councillor John Cook Woodman, and then there's Councillor Nick Cotter. Sorry about that. Yeah. And the prints are quite tiny. Shane Collins. Yeah. And there's Councillor Shane Collins. There's also Councillor Andrew Galvier. There's also Councillor Mike Hewson, Councillor John Hunt, Councillor Helen Kay, Councillor Val Kitch, Councillor Maurice Lewis, Marcus Kravis. Apologies, the prints are really tiny. And Councillor Harry Munt, Councillor Sue Osborne, Councillor Oliver Patrick, Councillor Stephen Page, Councillor Derek Perry, Councillor Rob Reed, Councillor Bill Revens, Councillor Frank Smith, Councillor Andy Sully, Councillor Lucy Trimmel, Councillor Richard Wilkins, Councillor
Martin Whale.
Apologies, Martin Whale, Councillor Gwilrain, and Councillor Howard Burt.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item... Oh, is there any other... Yes, Diogo.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies from Councillor Hayward Burt, Mark Healy and Connor Payne.
Okay, any more? Yes.
Councillor Adam Dance is running late and stuck in traffic. Thank you.
Yeah, I think there are a few councillors that are actually affected by traffic. Lee?
Similarly, I was just, Councillor Bruce said is on her way, but she's currently caught up in traffic, so she will be coming, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Right, moving on now to agenda item 2, which is the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 21st of May 2025. Is it your wish that I sign them as a true record? Yes, Sir Diego.
Thanks, Chair. Just a question on item of that minutes, item 12, I think it was. Let me just scroll down to it. Yeah, on the just a point of clarity, if I may, on item 12 for those minutes. It was a matter of public record at that meeting on video recording that the motion was labelled as racist. I don't want to go into the contents of it. But just to clarify, an email was sent by the monitoring officer, Alan Jones, to all members on the 12th of June, which read by him, I reviewed the motion to ensure it complied with relevant legislation, including the Equality Act, with the Council's Constitution and Code of Conduct. The fact that the motion was accepted for debate confirms that it met those legal requirements and was not deemed to be racist or discriminatory. So basically, because the last minute was a public record on video, I'd like this to be confirmed by the officer and reflected on the public record, particularly as the racist allegation was picked up by press, and had it been dealt with at the meeting, that wouldn't have happened.
Do you want to go?
Yeah, by all means. So, thank you, councillors. Yeah, we're happy to amend the minutes and publish the monitoring officer's response in conjunction with those minutes.
Thank you. We've got another hand up in the middle that
Yeah, on that note, I personally found some of the statements made highly, highly offensive. To accuse people of racism is a really, really serious thing, and it needs to be well thought out beforehand. And given that those accusations were publicly made in this forum, I would really appreciate a public apology in this forum.
Yes. Really, this isn't a debate, but Liz, do you want to come in?
Chair, you will be glad that I will be really pedantic and a little tedious and say that item 9 was seconded by Councillor Diego Rodriguez, not Councillor Mike Hewitson. So if that could be corrected, I'd be grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt Martin.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies, nothing to do with the point, but we can't hear anything over here, or at least I can't. Could we get something sorted out with the speakers, please? Thank you.
Right, we've heard the views, but I go back to the thing. Is it your wish with, obviously now we've had the statement, that I sign these as a record? Okay, yes, Liz.
Chair, if you're going to refer to one email from the monitoring officer, I know there were multiple emails from the monitoring officer following that meeting. I think we need to take some advice, legal advice, about how that is represented in the minutes so that it is fair to all members who were in the room on the day.
Okay, Lee, you want to come in?
I'm happy to propose or second the minutes as written, subject to modifications as agreed, Chair.
Okay, that's put. Obviously, all the comments have come in of things that happened. What we're talking about now is the minutes that happened on the day. So as long as everybody's happy for me to sign those, then obviously you've had the advice on the rest. Okay. Right. Item 3, declarations of interest. K&D.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not aware of any declaration of interest for the purpose of this meeting.
Okay. Has anybody got any declarations of interest? No? Okay. Right, item 4 of the agenda. Following the last meeting, myself and the Vice Chairman had a meeting with officers, and we thought it may be helpful to revisit the subject of conduct at full council meetings. The presentation you're going to see, which is a presentation for information, not a debate, was presented to all of the group leaders before this meeting. And rather now than listen to me all the time, Lee is going to go through it for you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, members. Thank you very much indeed. I'm just going to take 5 minutes going through the presentation that the Chair's mentioned. Thank you. We thought it was prudent just to reinforce the debate, not hate process that we've all signed up for and agreed with. So I'm going to take 5 minutes if I can just recap on expectations, if that's okay, of members' conduct at council meetings. The first slide. So civility and respect. A lot of this is very Janet and John, but as I say, I think it's worth just recapping. Civility means politeness and courtesy, of course, to all in behaviour, speech and the written word across the chamber, through debate and through conversation. And examples of ways in which we can show respect is by listening and paying attention to others, having due consideration and patience for other people's feelings, following protocols and rules, showing appreciation and thanks, and generally being kind to our fellow members across the council. As you'll be aware, our members' code of conduct states that as a councillor, we treat other councillors and members of the public with respect. So, for example, if I can just recap that when the chair speaks, any councillor speaking at that time must stop. Speaking at council meetings, the chair will invite a councillor to speak when they address the meeting. We will obviously take names when people raise their hand, and it'll be up to the chair's discretion who he calls. If more than one councillor signifies their intention to speak, as I say, the chair will ask one to speak. Other members must remain silent whilst the councillor is speaking, unless they wish to make a point of order or a point of personal explanation, which I'll come on to in just a second. We all enjoy debate. We love it, it's fruitful, we get involved with it, and it's healthy. But debate and disagreement should be expressed with courtesy, respectfulness, and politeness. Councillors should aim to keep their contributions to the meeting short and to the point, and we now have the new constitution signed up where there's timeliness and time limits on certain points that you'd have all had sent to you. Statements should not Statements should not include abuse, intimidation, or threats, and statements should not contain any discrimination in any shape or form. Points of order. You'll all be aware that councillors, you've got the right as members to raise a point of order. This needs to be raised through the chair of the meeting rather than interrupting a speaker. So when you stand to raise a point of order, you must specifically, specify exactly what is the breach of the council's constitution or laws during the debate. We've had in the past perhaps councillors standing up to a point of order where maybe they just don't like what's being said across the chamber. I think it's got to be pointed out that you need to raise the point of order and tell us on what point of the constitution you're raising that point of order. The chair will then determine whether to uphold the point of order that is raised after consultation with the monitoring officer. And the same with personal explanation. This is the final slide, you'll be pleased to know. So this also needs to be raised through the chair of the meeting rather than interrupting a speaker. And when invited to speak, you may make a personal explanation to clarify something during the debate which you said and may have appeared to have been misunderstood, which we have seen in the past. This rule should not be used just because a councillor has been named during the debate. And the chair once again will determine whether to allow a personal explanation. Thank you for your time, members. I'll hand you back to the chair. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Lee. Hopefully that's been worth time. This is, as I said, we're not going to debate it. It was for, if you wish to say anything, if you contact us after the meeting. Go on.
Sorry, Chair. Just to understand, just a bit pedantic, really, but where it said that to raise a point of order or whatever it was, that need to be raised through the chair rather than interrupting the speaker. Just wondering practically, because when you raise a point of order, you may be interrupting a speaker. So I'm just seeing how that practically. How do you want us to do that? Or do we interrupt the speaker just by saying point of order, sit down, and wait for you to come back to us? Is that what it is? Right. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry. Yes, John.
We can't at this end see the slide, or only half the slide. So are you happy that we move position? Or,
yeah, what we will do is...
We normally have a television here.
All the slides that were presented, we'll make sure it goes out to every councillor so you can actually review what's actually been said. Okay?
That wouldn't allow us to comment on them at this point, though.
Okay, thank you. Right, can we move on to item 5, which is public question time? We have 2 speakers today. Could I remind those speakers that they each have 3 minutes, up to 3 minutes, and to make any key points, and not to try and make any same comments if any other speakers on the same subject. Also is to highlight that every member will have seen the statements put forward, and though they can use their time to summarise. The first speaker we have today, which I believe is online, is David Redgewell.
Oh, Redgewell.
Ah.
Okay.
No? Okay, can we then move on to David Orr, who is our second speaker, who I'm pretty sure is online. Are you there, Mr. Orr?
Yes, can you hear me, Councillor?
Yes, we can hear you.
Right, I'll start my statement if you like.
Yes.
I would ban the word transformation from all councils running efficiency and savings projects. It's tainted by repeated failures. In Somerset, we had South West 1 with a strategic transformation partner who promised county and Taunton Deane councils a staggering 192 million of savings, pounds that is, the same savings required now. Instead, at least 69 million pounds was lost. Following that, Taunton Deane and South Somerset councils had transformation programmes with another consultancy. They also ended in ignominious failure with substantial extra costs, missed savings, and extensive disruption to key services. Many councillors here today were there too. The pattern is sadly as predictable as the failures. Start with gushing aspirations with the sunny uplands lying ahead on the yellow brick road. Pay very large sums to yet another consultancy as a strategic transformation partner. As with HS2, the council will struggle to transfer risk to the private sector, leaving local taxpayers on the hook for delays, higher charges and missed savings. This new unitary council had 3 years to prepare for and rationalise 5 councils into one, removing costly duplication of management overheads. This council declared a financial emergency back in 2023, yet in April the auditors Grant Thornton issued 2 unusual statutory warnings about a lack of progress in this council's transformation programme. Has that resulted in action this day with purpose and urgency? Not reading the latest highly aspirational transformation report just published. You're relying on, we can do it because of our brilliant workforce and amazing residents. To paper over implausible delivery timescales and investment funding gaps, magical IT and mystical AI will be relied upon. After 3 years, redundancy has been made without a full business case and before a new operating model for restructuring the council has been fully implemented, nor have pay and conditions for 5 workforces been harmonised. The cart has well and truly been put before the horse. Structural problems in national funding for social care should drive urgency and efficiency. My council tax has risen 21% these past 2 years. To get around the 5% cap, this council passed services without budgets to my Taunton Town Council. The council tax for Taunton Town Council has risen 190% to over £350 in just 2 years. Now the government is signalling that council tax for the next 4 years will rise by 7% a year. As I'm paying more for less, I am more a day's resident than an amazing resident. Post-COVID, the private sector has moved away from full-time home working to a hybrid model with some time in the office weekly to support efficiency, collaboration and performance management. For public confidence, will this council do the same? Finally, without a public scrutiny meeting, I believe that the key decision to spend up to £31 million on transformation consultancy is potentially unconstitutional and therefore will be improper. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. Theo, would you like to reply?
Thank you very much for your questions and for your views. As you rightly observe, doing nothing is not an option available to the council, and this administration has been clear about the scale and pace of change needed to deliver a sustainable council, needed to deliver for the people and communities of Somerset, needed to deliver productivity and morale across the public sector. We have already commenced that work, and the report you draw from is the second stage of it. To correct you, the council vested in April 2023, the executive approved the new target operating model in September 2024, And the business case for the workforce restructuring was presented to the trade unions in October 2024. The law puts us in a position where we do not have a harmonised terms and conditions. And having consulted with senior officers, I know of no upper tier council that does have single terms of conditions across the organisation. But I'm confident that we are working at an appropriate pace on this with our staff and with the trade unions. The Council has operated a dynamic working strategy since 2023, and our focus needs to be on recruitment, retention and productivity rather than a rigid or fixed view of how things should be across the organisation. We need to trust our managers to manage. On your final question, I am not aware of a key decision to spend the sum of money you mentioned. But if you send me details, I will look into it.
Thank you. I'll give another call for David Redgewell to just see if he has appeared online. I'm told not. What we'll do is, obviously, his question has been published for people to read, but I will ask for the reply to be put in public. Richard, is it you? Yeah, Richard Wilkins. Yeah.
Okay, it's a bit strange giving a response to a question that hasn't been asked, but we've had discussions with First South West on this matter prior to and following the bus advisory meeting on the 24th of June. They provided data which showed that since the 1st of April 2025, they have picked up a total of 333 passengers on the 28 and 28A from the 3 bus stops in the Broad Gauge Business Park close to the West Somerset Railway on a service which carries around 7,000 passengers per week. This indicates an average of less than 1 passenger per trip boarding at these 3 stops. There will still be a bus stop close by to the Lethbridge Arms in Bishop's Lydeard, which will require passengers to walk to the West Somerset Railway, but the walking route is short and safe with a pedestrian underpass under the A358, avoiding the need to cross a busy road. This change is not a cost-cutting measure, as First South West are looking to redistribute the time taken to serve these stops across the route approximately 3 to 4 minutes, providing greater reliability for the vast majority of passengers. In reaching this decision, First South West consulted with the Somerset Bus Partnership prior to the Bus Advisory Board, and our understanding from First South West was that the Somerset Bus Partnership were accepting of this change, as it would benefit local passengers along the whole route. We also understand that following the Bus Advisory Board meeting, First South West have had separate discussions with GWR about this change. The journey, which currently diverts to Broad Gauge Business Park, are operated by First South West with no direct funding from Somerset Council, and as such they have taken a commercial decision to withdraw these stops due to low use in favour of improving the reliability of the whole service. They have adhered to the requirements of the enhanced partnership agreement by bringing these changes to the Bus Advisory Board prior to registration, and have gone one step further by discussing this change with the Somerset Bus Partnership prior to the meeting in June, on the 24th of June. First South West have confirmed that they intend to introduce this change on the 31st of August 2025, but they have assured us that they will review this decision again before the introduction of the summer timetable in 2026.
Thank you, Richard, for doing that. Moving on to item 6, which is Chair's announcement. I only have to draw your attention to pages 23, 24 in the agenda, which outline the visits taken place since the last meeting by myself and the Vice Chairman. If anybody wants to know any details from it, please feel free to come up to us afterwards, and I'm sure we can fill you in. Moving on to item 7, which is the Treasury Management End of Year Report 24-25. Just to highlight, if any councillor wishes to discuss information contained in Appendix B, we would need to go into confidential session. So it would be handy to know if anybody would like to do that so that we could do. But I did note that from the 2 meetings that this has been to, in neither session was that undertaken. So, okay, I will pass over to Liz then, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. So this summary of the Treasury management activity of Somerset Council in 2024-25 is in compliance with the CIPFA Code of Practice. That's the Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy, and the Local Government Act 2003. As you have said, Chair, this year-end report has already been considered by Audit Committee in June and by Executive earlier this month. Table 1 on page 29 of the ModGov pack gives detail of the under-borrowed position of this council. The benefit of that effective Treasury management has been seen in the revenue budget outturn for the year 24-25, where the cost of financing transactions was considerably reduced by the under-borrowing, in part enabled by the sale of assets, which has in turn reduced the need for further borrowing in line with CIPFA's Prudential Code. I recall that Audit Committee members recorded their thanks to the Treasury Management team, whose work is so important to the financial stability of this council. Treasury management is often the quiet paper, but it is one of the most important. You have already mentioned the confidential Appendix B, and Chair, I would really like to also take this opportunity to welcome Clive Heafy to Somerset Council as our interim Section 151 officer, sitting right behind me, and to his first full council meeting of this authority. So I will be proposing the Treasury Management Report for the year end 24-25, and happy to take any questions.
Right, can I go now to Theo, who is going to second?
Happy to second the report and reserve my right to speak, although I suspect that Councillor Latron will cover everything for me.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes, Dawn.
Thank you. Just the fact that this paper is 2.5 times the length of last year's shows that it's been quite a challenging year. Given the, and thank you to all the team that put that together, given the volatility in the interest rates during 2024 and 2025, which I suppose was medium to high in relation to the 2022 and 23 period, especially with the cuts in February and May, did the council take any steps to delay or refinance borrowing to take advantage of the falling rates at any point? Thank you.
Yes, Liz.
Chair, that is more a question for the specialists who work in the Treasury Management team. It is quite interesting how we have to think differently in local authority than we think in our own lives, where in our own lives borrowing is specific to an individual asset, like a house or a car. But the Treasury Management, particularly for a large authority like this, is an overall Treasury Management, and that capital financing requirement and actually where we are borrowing is always clearly shown in the table. As the interest rate drops, that is, of course, very welcome, because Treasury Management team may decide to take some borrowing that is longer term than they might have done otherwise. When we went through vesting, of course, there was a position where all 5 councils had different situations on their borrowing, some longer term, some shorter term, and that has been a really significant piece of work that the whole team has done since before vesting and after. I do recommend for the Councillor Denton that she takes advantage of every offer that the Treasury Management team will give you to actually learn more of their really important work. And I'm also always open to questions, but I will probably pass them on to the specialists. Thank you.
Thank you. Dave Mansell.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, my question, well, it's more of an observation, to be honest, but I would welcome if there's any sort of response comments on it. And it relates to the commercial investment portfolio. On page 44, if I've understood it correctly, this shows that the loss that has been made on the commercial investment portfolio. So over £300 million invested by the previous district councils, and the value of that, including properties now sold, has a decrease in value of nearly £79 million. I wish to draw attention to it, one, to highlight how disappointing that is, but also to mention that, especially at Somerset West and Taunton Authority I previously served on, there were concerns raised throughout about this commercial investment programme and why, that council should not be doing this. We were taking big risks with public money, and should we be doing that? Especially when it came to the point that it was clear that the government wished to discourage and block it. Many of us tried to at least get the programme paused and stopped. We were unsuccessful, I regret to say, and now we see the result of pursuing that policy. A massive loss to the council since the investment was made. My final observation is, for me, I think there could be some lessons learned here. I won't be too specific, but I think there should be lessons that we draw from this. Including with regard to how we deal with our current budget, current financial problems, and closing the budget gap, including through transformation. I think there are lessons to be learned from this, which I hope will be apparent to others as well. As I say, any observations on that, welcome.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you, Chair. I think there are lessons to be learnt for government and also for PWLB, actually, as well as local government. So I regret that local authorities were put in the position where they made investments at a time when interest rates were particularly low. I don't think government should ever have put local government in that position. I don't believe PWLB should ever have allowed some of that enormous borrowing where we've seen much, much worse in other councils. And the one thing, Chair, that we never mention, and I have asked that we do bring this into our understanding of the situation, is how much money those former district councils took in income from those investments over the years. Because you may recall when we set the first budget here for Somerset Council, there was somewhere in the region of 20 million a year coming in income from those investments. That is reducing, and it is being reduced accurately, correctly reflecting those sales, and we see that in the Property and Investment Executive Subcommittee. And I'd also point out that in pooled funds, so of which this council has many pooled funds, that there is also reduction in value there, which of course only crystallises if those are sold or cashed in, if you like. So this is something that has happened all across the country since COVID. I really, really wish that local government had never been put in that position, and PWLB, I think, should be looking at where they loan money, at what rates, and if government really want us to do good work like social housing, PWLB need to be part of that argument about what the rates are. Thank you.
Thank you. Peter C.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just say that at the top of page 31, paragraph 26, I welcome the month-end debt balances coming down on the general fund figure. I noticed that there was, and it's a very substantial reduction over the year, so I think that is really, really good news. I noticed there is an uptick on the housing revenue account debt, which is explained in terms of the number of loans which have been taken out to increase that debt. But the report doesn't actually mention what those loans are for, and I wondered if we could have a response on that.
Liz.
Chair, I think that reflects the ambition of the HRA to start building more social housing in Somerset, and most importantly, and even excitingly, is to break through those boundaries of the former district councils and start working all across the whole of Somerset. I think, actually, I understand Councillor Seave's concern. I think it's an indicator of good news, of us working differently. I'd really like to have a word with PWLB about their rates for house building, but I doubt they'll let me.
Diogo.
Thanks, Chair. I think we all know that the council's having to sell the assets to avoid the risk of bankruptcy to a certain degree, otherwise that becomes even more real. My question, though, is kind of also on Councillor Mansell's point on page 44. I'm just seeking some clarity. I'm sure I've read it correctly, but I could have not done so. There are two figures referring to the revaluation. Can it just be confirmed that the decrease in value, the total decrease of value in the assets is actually £96 million? And also, I appreciate the confidentiality of some stuff, but is there a public viewable record of the value of the individual assets sold, and whether they sold for a profit or a loss at all? It may be available to councillors, I don't know, but I may have missed that as well, but whether or not it's a public record. And can she also confirm, and I think this is correct, but perhaps if she could confirm, that the audit committee will be doing a kind of a deep dive into the assets and asset sales?
Liz.
Okay, so sorry, I'm a bit confused about exactly where the questions are. The figures in this paper will be correct, that's why they're published. Individual assets, of course, you know the executive subcommittee, which is open to all members, and actually a lot of members attend, well, a relative number of members attended the most recent meeting. I understand, and we may need specialist advice. It might be that I need to call on our 151 officer. As we get to the position that audit is, when audit looks back on financial years and statement of accounts, that there may well be further information at that stage. But whilst we're in the process of disposal of assets to reduce our need for borrowing, then obviously that remains confidential.
Thank you. Okay. Right. It might be a good time to remind councillors either to switch their phones off or put them on silent. But, okay. I can't see any further hands, so unless anyone, proposer or seconder, wishes to add, we can move to the vote. Okay. The recommendations A to D have been put. Can I have a show of hands, please? All those in favour? Any against? And any abstentions? 3. Okay, thank you. Okay, that's carried. So now we move on to item 8 of the agenda, which is an update part D4 of the Council's Constitution, Licensing and Regulatory Committee Terms of Reference. And I go over to Ross Henley. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, members. I hope you can all hear me okay. This is an opportunity to review the terms of references and the working practices of the licensing subcommittee that are hearing their terms of references. Members will be aware, or they may not be aware, that during the height of the COVID pandemic, a national experiment took place where legislation was passed through Parliament which allowed for meetings, council meetings, to take place exclusively online. That legislation lapsed on the 7th of May 2021, and we reverted back to the standard practice of having meetings in person, face-to-face. Now, with that in mind, the government has been launching a national consultation, where they are publishing some proposals about maybe amending that to allow some kind of hybrid meetings. With that in mind, a High Court challenge has been made regarding Lewisham Council and a specific application, and the High Court challenge ruled that it is lawful for persons to participate in the Licensing Act 2003 hearings remotely. They may therefore be held online in full or as part of a hybrid procedure. So with that in mind, this council has actually reviewed that and has taken an opportunity to propose a change in its working practices and references. The Council is resolving that Part D of the Council's Constitution, the Licensing, Regulatory Committee and Subcommittee Terms of Reference, be revised as shown in terms of Appendix 1, which is circulated as an agenda. The revision set out that the Council's preference is for online hearing. Now, to amend the Constitution to reflect the High Court ruling, additionally this has the impact to potentially reduce the financial cost of this Council and in general have a good environmental impact, and of that of individuals travelling to Council's various offices in Somerset for hearings. There are lots of benefits for this proposal in terms of having online meetings, and I'll outline some of them here. Participants can join in from online, from anywhere. They don't have to be traipsed into Taunton or Shepton Mallet or Yeovil or Bridgewater, wherever the hearing will be. It reduces the need for transport support, so the Council's aims to decarbonise activities, become a carbon neutral county. It eliminates travel and accommodation expenses, which can lead to significant costs for applicants who are commonly represented by solicitors and consultants who may not live in the local area. The Council will save on the cost of fuel expenses and pool car use. Online meetings, as we know, can be more time efficient. They often start and end on time, and there's no need to account for travel time. And online platforms can make meetings more accessible for people with disabilities or those with commitments during the normal working day. Now, I accept that there potentially are some disadvantages with this as well. And with that in mind, we had a full debate, thorough debate at Constitution and Governance Committee about this. There has to be some checks and balances as well. And the Council is proposing checks and balances whereby that officers can make arrangements for hearings to be online, which is our preference, unless there's been significant public interest in the matter requiring the hearing. For instance, a high number of representations objecting to the granting of a licence. In such cases, a hearing would be hybrid, taking place principally at the Council offices, with parties having the option to participate online should they wish. And a further check and balance, which is sadly was not in Appendix 1, where the Chair and Vice Chair can meet and they can make a decision to make a meeting hybrid and allow rather than an online setting. So those checks and balances are in place. Constitution and Governance Committee did acknowledge some of the downfalls of this practice. The importance of parties appearing on camera, which came up, and I made that point myself, as did other members. It's really important that participants appear engaged, they have their cameras on all the time, to demonstrate they're properly engaging in the hearing. Yes, rurality needs to be recognised as a potential barrier to parties participating online, but of course, if members know that, or members of the public know that, there's an opportunity, with the meeting being published several days before the meeting takes place, to arrange to be at a place where they have better internet access. I therefore, on balance, I'm very supportive of these proposals laid out in Appendix 1, and I propose that we move the terms of references for licensing subcommittee to allow, as a matter of first practice, online meetings only, but with the rider, and in circumstances, that they can revert to online hybrid meetings if necessary.
Thank you. Can I go to Simon Carswell, who's seconding the proposal?
Thank you, Chair. I echo Councillor Henley's comments. I know a number of committee members on the Licensing Committee and also other councillors have expressed a concern about being totally online, and that's why we put in about the option for the Chair and Vice Chair of the Licensing Committee to decide if a meeting should be face-to-face or hybrid. Sometimes it's a good thing to see the whites of the eyes of the people you're talking to, but in general, we're in favour of this, so I'd like to second the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. If I could open this up, Benty, you wish to speak.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to, because this here is worrying for me. A chair and vice chairman, is that the elected member that will sit and decide whether it goes online or not? First question. Second question is there going to be a solicitor properly attending the meeting? And thirdly, I do not like online meetings. So I'm against online meetings.
Ross, do you want to take that?
Yes, I will. I mean, it would be, as said, the chair and vice chair of the licensing committee who would make that decision whether to go to a hybrid meeting rather than an online meeting. I'm just checking my notes again on this, what I said earlier. It won't be a moment, it's just getting to the right place. Officers also will be involved in that decision, and officers can make arrangements for the hearings to be online unless, as I said, there is significant public interest in the matter regarding the hearing and a high number of representations. So there's a double check and balance whereby officers can move to actually make the meetings hybrid rather than online only, and the other check and balance is the chair and vice chair of licensing, who could also have that role to actually potentially make that meeting hybrid rather than online as well.
Thank you. Diogo.
Thank you, Chair. I sat on Licensing and Regulatory Committee when it first came before Constitution, and what I did ask for was for the Vice Chair and Chair to have that responsibility, which everyone in the room did agree, and we did spend some time debating that. I think we recognised really the importance of elected members having that important role in working with officers, not just leaving it to officers to decide. So I do welcome that update. The only thing that I want to just question and make sure it's right and proper is in Appendix 1, in the updated Appendix 1, Part D4, 1.6, that's been updated, but it doesn't explicitly refer to the chair and vice chair being part of that decision making. I just want to ask the member and perhaps the relevant officer whether that needs to be added in before we vote to agree this, or if that's something that constitutionally can just be added in at a later date.
Ross.
Yeah, I queried this before the meeting this afternoon with the senior officer when I arrived here today, and I had assurances that this further check and balance, as members have wanted, that the chair and vice chair, elected members, can make the decision for the meeting to be a hybrid meeting rather than an online meeting. I can see the sense in actually adding those words or a form of words to 1.6 there to enshrine that in there, which I hope would reassure members.
Hugh Davis.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me okay? Thank you. First of all, Chair, we've just been told that they've got things in order to run this situation, but I've seen it in action where we've had members of the public on the screen. In fact, some of them hadn't even been there to speak, but they came on the screen and interfered with the actual hearing. I wonder what we can do about that. I know they were chased up at the time, but they still continue to do it. Also, I wonder how we can make a decision whether they're going to be one or the other for the meeting, either here or online, because how do you know how the people are going to behave? I mean, the last one that I attended was where the fun and games started, and I was appalled. Actually, I voted against the person, but it still went through. But I'd like that answered, Chair. I've got great respect for my chair and vice chair and the rest of the team, but we're doing the magistrate's job. I don't think you'll be able to do that in the magistrate's. Thank you.
Ross.
And who made very similar points to the Constitution and Governance Committee very eloquently. And I think it's quite clear that there is a responsibility on chairs of licensing committees to actually make it absolutely crystal clear what is expected of participants, of applicants, of legal representations and members of the public, that they should be respectful of each other and they should have their cameras on and be engaged, not to have their cameras switched off where they could leave the room and they're just zipping in and out and not hearing the discussion. So I think there is that strong responsibility responsibility on the chair and vice chair of licensing committees to make that absolutely crystal clear and take appropriate action if that is not taken place. But it does need managing, I accept that.
Andy Dingwell.
Thank you, Chair. My question is also on the, as Councillor Henry was just talking about the camera being on during the meeting. On page 59, it talks about the importance of parties appearing on camera. What definition of importance do you have? And so if a camera flicks off for 5 seconds, is that person no longer allowed to vote? Is there a definition of what looks engaged in the hearing? And if there is that something that can be included as well?
Back to you, Ross.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? I mean, I would imagine if there's a technical problem and then somebody's system, their internet connection is broken for a few seconds, I wouldn't thought that would preclude them from voting and participating in the meeting. They'd have to make that absolutely quite clear to the chair of the meeting why their camera had disappeared for a certain amount of time, and discretion must be used by the chair or the vice chair of that committee meeting on that. But I think there is that strong responsibility right from the get-go from the chair to make sure that members and participants know what the rules and regulations are and the business practices of how to behave in those meetings. But I think if consistently, if people who are participating, are their cameras going on and off, and it's quite clear that there's no audit trail that they're there all the time, it's quite appropriate for the I think for the chair to actively query that and actually take the appropriate action.
Bob Filmer.
Thank you, Chair. It was just following up on those same points, and Councillor Henley mentioned the fact that obviously there are areas in the county which have poor broadband, but also we're all subject to potential dropouts, and you can't be sure that that's going to be online. It's interesting just looking at the meeting we're in at the moment, there's been a sound problem that there were messages coming up saying sound had gone, it's now saying sound is back. So even in a good venue with good broadband, these things can happen. So I just wonder, is there any plan to have a monitoring of this over once it's introduced, and maybe a report back to your committee to see whether those issues have cropped up, and just to keep it under review rather than just accept it and assume that everything's going to be all right?
Ross.
These two issues do come up, and it happened to me yesterday. I was at work running a course on how to deal with people on the telephone, which was rather interesting, and I lost my internet connection for 10 or 15 minutes. They did allow me back into the meeting to complete my presentation, but more for them. But in all seriousness, I think it's a very valid point by the member, I think it's Bob Filmer, that we do need to monitor this. We need to see how it works. I'm very much in favour of doing this, but I think, of course, we need to get those terms of reference right and see what the responses are, and the experiences is the word I'm looking for, in terms of how often this happens and the reasons for people dropping out of the meeting.
And we now have Martin Dimmery.
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do apologise for Councillor Dunk and myself being late, but one of the reasons for that was that we were detoured around much of North Somerset in order to get here. And in view of that, in fact, at one point I did pull in to reset the sat-nav, and we considered going home and watching online because it might have been easier, but Councillor Dunk's wearing his best suit and that argument swung the day. In view of which, I think the more hybrid meetings we have, the easier it will be for many of us.
Thank you for that. Susanna Hart.
Oh, hi. I was just going to really echo some of the comments that have already been made now. So, you know, the poor Wi-Fi coverage that most of us experience in Somerset is such that lines dropping are inevitable. In fact, at Planning East, repeatedly the organisers ask people who are dialing in to have their cameras switched off just so that the meeting can continue. So I think we've got to be realistic about that. I'm not saying I'm against hybrid meetings, because I'm not at all. I also just think it's a very sad state of affairs if we're going to get to a situation where we can't allow councillors to vote because their camera's gone down. You know, if we can't trust our own members enough to be doing the right thing, I think, you know, what are we doing here in the first place, frankly?
Thank you. Mark Spar.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I was at this licensing committee and we spent over an hour on it. And everything that's been said in this room, we actually discussed in that room. This is about something that if you've got somebody that wants a taxi driver and and his lawyer's stuck up in Sheffield, then it's about not all things would be done on camera, but it's I think it was more subcommittees that would be done on Zoom or whatever you want to call it. So I think we're just getting away from it, and I think we're talking about something that doesn't really exist. I propose that we go to the vote. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I've got I didn't have any further hands. Now Diego wants to come back in.
Thanks, Chair. It's just to follow up on Councillor Ross Henley's point. He said he'd be happy to add a form of words about having chair and vice chair into appendix. So I wonder if I could make that suggestion, just to add the sentence at the end of 1.6 to the appendix that we can agree on today, that essentially says the decision to hold hybrid or online hearings will be made in consultation with chair and vice chair of licensing and regulatory committee. If that was acceptable to add to appendix today and agree that, then I'm happy to propose that if Councillor Henley's happy.
Ross, can I go back to you?
I'm happy to accept.
Okay, right. Alan Bradford, and then we'll go to the proposal secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's very important to see councillors' body language at any meeting. Cameras hide a lot of things. You switch on, you switch off, and do what you like. But the older people in this room will probably agree with me that public speaking is a rare thing today. We was brought up in the day we were educated in which to do that. It's only a great shame today that schools don't do it. How many people do you know you can have a sensible conversation with people today about looking on their mobile phone? All you get is maybe, right? Now, are we going to become a load of zombies or what? It's becoming that way. We can't say what we feel, and we aren't going to be able to see people now who really want to say something, but you see eye contact. If I want to give people a good bollocking, and they get them, I'm sorry, that's the word I'm going to use. I did that on 3 occasions yesterday. Went to see people after a public meeting or public on Monday night. I went to see them personally, eye contact. And you cannot beat it. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I can't agree with this at all. Sorry.
Thank you. Jill, and then we will move to the...
Mr. Chairman, I apologise for my dear friend left on me, but I would say that we're all got a different opinion about this. I think hybrid meetings are absolutely excellent. I think we're all in Somerset now, and we're all coming from all over parts of the world, and it feels like we're spending hours travelling to get to A to B. And somebody that is physically impaired, I can see the value to it. But why don't we go back to about 6 people earlier when Councillor Filmer said, let's just try it. Let's try it and see how it works. And if it doesn't work, then we can come back to the table. Please.
Right, I'm now going to go back to Simon Carswell.
Thank you, Chair. I accept a lot of councillors' concerns. However, I do think this is the way forward. We recently had a subcommittee in Bridgewater where a solicitor travelled down from Leicester, had overnight accommodation which the applicant had to pay for, and the hearing was over in half an hour. And that, quite frankly, is ridiculous. We did manage online meetings during COVID perfectly well, and if you have an excellent chair, which we do have on most subcommittees, he will pause the meeting as appropriate and also notice if somebody is not taking part and address that situation. So I'd like to go ahead to the vote, please.
Thank you. Finally, back to Ross. Do you wish to add anything?
I do like actually a few things, please. This is about increasing democracy. This is about allowing the opportunity for more people to participate in a positive way in our decision-making process. In 2025, it is utterly absurd that we have no provision nationally for online-only meetings. It is nonsense. It worked very, very well during the height of the COVID pandemic. I'd like to thank Martin Dimmery and other people who come from that part of Frome. For members to be expected they have to, not even as a right, to have to travel on a 3-hour round trip to full council meetings, have no other alternative if they wish to vote in meetings is utterly absurd. And it's long overdue that these rules regarding licensing committee and other committees and council meetings is reviewed. And I welcome the government's review on this whole matter in the whole. And it's not, as Councillor Hart said, I wish to disagree, that we're not trusting members. We are trusting members. Nobody is going to be denied a vote if their internet connection drops out for 5 minutes. But we're trusting members to be honest with us and actually explain the situation, why they were absent from the meeting. It's only if people are actually deliberately not participating in the meeting, disappearing out of the room to do other things, and then come back in, where the chair would appropriately have to take the right action and potentially review that person's right to vote in that meeting. It's a long way time coming. We should move forward positively in this. I wholeheartedly recommend these recommendations to you.
Okay, I am now going to move to the vote. It's the recommendation is to accept the revision in Appendix 1. Can I have a show of hands, please, those in favour? Any against? And any abstentions? 2. Okay, that's carried. We move on to item 9, which is a report from the Chief Executive. I'd like to bring in Chris Hall to my right.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon, councillors. So I'm here to represent Chief Executive and present to you a report based on his decision that was taken on the 1st of July. As required by the delegation, his decision has been taken and it gets brought to full council for you to note. The content of that decision is set out in the report and in paper A, which is all presented in front of you. I believe it to be fairly clear-cut, and it's gone through the consultation process necessary to enact that decision. I have nothing further to add to that, other than to remind you of the recommendation in front of you, that being that the Council is asked to note the decision taken by the Chief Executive on the 1st of July 2025 to grant a leave of absence for Councillor Ajula. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Diogo.
Yes, Chair. If it's just noting, I don't know that I have to propose, but just to say, we will obviously wish Councillor Surya Ajula well during her pregnancy. Exciting time, but it's not always straightforward. And I know the whole room will be wishing her well. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I acknowledge. Liz, do you want to add?
Thank you. And to second, I also add my best wishes to Councillor Ajula and really like to say, Chair, how good it is when we see our colleagues come back into the chamber after a period when they've been off. It's really good to see Councillor Slocum and others back in the chamber, and I really hope that we'll soon see Councillor Ajula +1.
Thank you. Before I let Lee in, can I ask the person whose phone keeps going off, please to switch it off? Or if they don't know how to switch it off, pass it to somebody else that does. That's okay. Thank you. Okay, that obviously item is for noting. Oh, sorry. Oh, Lee, sorry, I forgot you. Sorry, my apologies.
Reference to muting of the phone, I have got my Dr. Martens on and they make a good hammer at times. Just a small point, Chair. I support all the comments in relation to this. It's just a point of clarification, really. It is, when it comes to leave of absence for any particular reason, I know that the group leaders have information about it, and I don't want to draw any overly attention, but is there a need for as much detail in these when we publish? Because some people's personal information could be a bit overshared. I send my regards to Surya, and I really hope that, but I think the level of detail that this has gone into could hopefully be over or improved as we go forward. Well, I'm happy for this, the group leaders to agree something, but and no, I've seen this reported online a number of times in level, and I don't. Everyone's entitled to their own privacy, and I know when it's very hard for some members to, if they think that their details are going to be published, to come forward to ask for a leave of absence. It's a brave thing to do in some situations, and I think anything we could do to give some level of confidentiality to it, I think we should be considering it, Chair.
Okay, Diego, I know you want to comment.
Yeah, just for clarity, that the choice of words given were given by Councillor Ajula and agreed by her, and I agree that sometimes the press go above it too far and beyond, and we end up getting all sorts of comments online, which sometimes it's a shame to see, but it was agreed by Councillor Ajula.
Okay, I think that point has been stressed. It was agreed with the councillor. Okay, so if we move on now to item 10, which is the annual report of the Scrutiny Committee for Corporate and Resources, and we go to Stephen Pugsley.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. As you will see from the report, the Corporate and Resources Scrutiny has had an exceptionally busy year. not the least because of the ongoing issues concerning the authority's financial stability and the need for scrutiny to engage in the monitoring of budget performance. We've been very fortunate to have been chaired for much of this year by my predecessor, Councillor Bob Filmer. I make no claims for what has happened subsequently. With the very able support of the Vice Chairs, Councillors Hobhouse and now Johnson, active contributions from the committee members, and I will say welcome participation from executive members. Throughout, we are exceptionally well backed by our officers whose dedication and occasionally high levels of tolerance are truly remarkable. We are looking forward to the challenges of the next year, including, of course, ongoing financial review and monitoring, scrutiny of Phase 2 of the Council's Improvement and Transformation Strategy, and the presentation to this full Council and implementation of changes to the way in which scrutiny operates across the authority. This is likely to include a pivot towards more policy development and task and finish work in order to make scrutiny an even more effective part of this Council's service to the people of Somerset. So I would ask, Mr. Chairman, that this full Council receive and note this annual report.
Okay, are there any questions or... Yes, Diogo.
Thank you, Chair, and can I thank Councillor Pugsley and his predecessor, Councillor Filmer, for the excellent chairing of that committee. I do just have a question about looking ahead, number 13, to the Chair, if he would accept my question and suggestion. It's looking ahead, it's just last week, I think it was last week, the Exec agreed the Inspiring Innovation Whole Council Transformation Plan, which has had pretty much no public scrutiny, which I think is pretty poor on the administration's behalf, considering this is about making fundamental, long-lasting changes to the way in which this council operates. Those in the public will have noticed that there were some comments at the exec papers which reference this coming to scrutiny and some of the comments scrutiny made, but there is no public record because I don't believe that particular discussion was held online for members of the public to view. And when it came to executive, there were very limited opportunities for members not on the executive to ask questions of that plan. So my question to him is, having looked at the most recent forward plan for CNR, there's nothing showing that this particular Inspiring Innovation Plan will come forward to scrutiny. So could he consider or could he confirm whether or not this paper will be coming to scrutiny and the decision around the strategic partner as an urgent item to a future meeting?
Stephen.
Thank you, Chairman. Could I just reflect that the Improvement and Transformation Programme has been updated to members of the committee. I note on the 11th of July, 28th of October, 25th of November, 6th of January, there was a workshop about a month ago, and we've also got coming up now on the 30th of July to CNR scrutiny a high-level presentation which isn't intended to review the report that went to the executive last week, but it will delve deeper into the transformation plan, explaining its contents and rationale behind it, as well as how to contribute to the plan going forwards. And then we are expecting that on the 27th of August, we will focus on the strategic transformation partner decision, which is due to go to the executive on the 3rd of September. And that will therefore give members the opportunity to review the recommendation for the preferred partner, scrutinise the proposal with a focus on value for money, risk and alignment with strategic priorities, and provide feedback that will be shared with the executive to inform their decision.
Thank you. Okay, that is... Liz, you want to come back?
Thank you, Chair. I also want to add my thanks to the previous Chair, Councillor Filmer, and the current Chair, Councillor Pugsley, who's just proved why he's so good at chairing that committee, and Councillor Filmer was equally good. And I'd also like to add my thanks to the two Vice Chairs, Councillor Hobhouse and now Councillor Johnson. It is really important that scrutiny works effectively, and I welcome the changes that will come forward, and I commit myself, and I know I have colleagues who do the same, to working with scrutiny as effectively as we possibly can, because we all want the best for this council and for the people of Somerset. So thank you
for
to
that.
the chairs.
Okay, we're asked to note the reports, and we move on to item 11, which is summary of key decisions taken since the last full council meeting. Back to you, Liz.
Thank you, Chair. So we have the list of the key decisions on pages 90, 91, and just over on to page 92. So my colleagues and I on the executive are here to take any questions on any of those particular decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? I can't see. Yes, Barry Clark.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going backwards a long way. Just very quickly, I don't remember when the minutes were discussed that we took a vote on the minutes, and I think there were some people who dissented from what was in the minutes. That's point number one. Thank you. The other point is, we had the formation of the Unitary Authority. We had all the reorganisation that went with it. We've had a redundancy programme. We've had more reorganisation. And in the current climate of the overspends and the likely overspends until 2029, do we really need to spend £3 million on an outside consultancy body telling us what we should and what we should not have? Surely with more than 3 years into the new authority, somebody must have a grasp of what the situation is likely for wages and salaries. And that is question number one. And question number two, are we able to know who or what was the driver for making the decision to spend the £3 million in the first place? I know very well it's in the budget. Budgets are not money to be spent necessarily, they're merely a guidance. And I wonder if somebody could tell us who actually authorised this other than a executive. Somebody must have had this idea in the first place. Thank you, Chair.
Theo.
To clarify, we are not spending £3 million on an external consultant. What we agreed to do, and by we I mean the executive which made the decision, is to allocate that up to that amount of money for the programme from the point of view of a transformation or flexible use of capital reserves spend. An element of it will be spent on bringing in an external partner. Another large element of it will be spent on existing Somerset Council resource being allocated to that programme. I'm happy to make sure that the full details of that are circulated when they are in a position for them to be circulated. It is absolutely vital that we ensure we are paying our staff fairly. If we are not paying our staff fairly, there are two major risks. One, we will not be able to recruit vital staff. And I note that Councillor Clark is a member of the planning committee that I was briefly a member of too. Any councillor involved in planning knows that we struggle to recruit staff for that area and for other vital areas of the council's work because we do not believe our pay is set appropriately for the market. But to resolve that, we do need a proper review of pay and reward, which has not been fully done in this council for 20 years. And in order for us to have a system of pay and reward that enables us to recruit and reduces the risk of any form of equal pay claim, we have to do a proper piece of work like this.
Yeah, okay. Right, is there any... Yes, Diego.
Thanks, Chair. Just to, on the same topic, if I may, Councillor Theobald-Philip, just for clarity, so we're spending £3 million on what is, or up to £3 million on what is explained, or something along those lines. But just to make clear to the public, it also says that there's MTFP provision of £8 million in 26-27 for potential increases in payroll. So just to clarify that we're spending potentially up to £3 million on this pay and grading programme to then potentially have an £8 million increase in payroll expenditure. Just to make sure if that's clear.
Theo.
There are provisions within the MTFP. We will not know the outcome of the pay and reward programme until we've gone through this, but we know that a number of our staff are not paid what they should be, and it's vital that we address that so that we can deliver in the way we wish to for the people and communities of Somerset.
Yes, Liz.
If I could just take this a little wider, you'll understand that people in this council are now in demand across the country from other councils, many more of them that are likely to be heading towards local government reorganisation at a time when they too are feeling financial stress. And one of the things that I now talk to members of all parties across the country is if you are heading towards a unitary authority, have a look at the terms and conditions of the continuing council, because that is the single most important factor. So when members of this council have more time, compare the situation in Somerset with the situation in North Yorkshire, where the continuing council had very different and better, in most cases, terms and conditions than those councils that disappeared at vesting. Somerset situation is the exact opposite, and that is a really important national point for other councils to understand.
Thank you. I see no further hands, so that as report is noted. We moved on to the final item, which is item 12, which is questions to councillors to the executive, starting off with Lee Redman.
Thank you, Chair. My question relates to young people's mental health. An explainer, first of all. I note the recent policy change in allowing questions to executive being taken at executive as well as full council. I've chosen to bring this question here because it is an issue that is county-wide, and I hope all councillors will appreciate for them to be aware and supportive of the issue raised. Council will know that I've always been a big supporter of young people. One of the areas I always try to raise and discuss is about their mental health. We all know that mental health can be good and bad. Too often, the stigma of mental health can be the biggest barrier to someone, old or young, boy or girl, seeking help. Most young people enjoy good mental health for the majority of their childhood, but a minority experience significant challenges with their mental health and have some very serious difficulties that can cast a shadow over their entire life. An estimated 1 child in 10 has a mental health difficulty at one time, and many more are at risk of poor mental health without early help. Since the onset of COVID, young people have experienced a marked decline in mental health, with significant increases in anxiety, depression, and the feeling of loneliness. Social isolation due to lockdowns, disruptions at school and social routines, and the ongoing economic uncertainty have contributed to these trends. While some young people reported positive effects like increased self-care and reflection, the overall impact has been overwhelmingly negative, highlighting the urgent need for early intervention and support. Can I ask what Somerset Council is doing to support young people's mental health in our schools and our communities?
Okay, can I ask Heather Shearer, please, to respond?
Thank you
forgive me. Thank you. I hope you can hear me okay. I'm usually too far away from the microphone. I just want to start off first by saying thank you and extending my thanks to Lee, to Councillor Redmond, for his continued and consistent concern for young people, and that he is always a great champion and a great Jiminy Cricket in my ear for sure, and I think it should be in the whole councils to make sure we have the voice of children heard. But my response, I'm going to try and keep it quite short. If I may, I could spend all afternoon talking about this, and I would welcome it if we could. The published response might be a little bit longer, but I'll try and cover all of your points if I could. So firstly, to say I agree entirely about the importance of good mental health and well-being for all Somerset children and young people. As you describe in your question, too often the impact of COVID-19 lockdown, anxiety created by social media and world events, and pressure from exams have a significant impact on young people's lives and negatively affect their well-being. That is not an exhaustive list, of course. Unfortunately, children's mental health services have been nationally underfunded for many years, while demand continues to rise every year. I welcome the central government's commitment to expanding mental health support teams in schools in the NHS's 10-year plan. However, I have concerns that funding has not yet been identified for this priority. We work closely with Somerset Foundation Trust, the Children and Adolescents Mental Health, or CAMS service, their teams, who are responsible for mental health services or delivering direct mental health services for children. But the ways in which we work in a more partnership way in what we are doing, I'll list just a few here for you now. So I would point you to the Therapeutic School in the Homes and Horizons project, which is jointly funded and supported by the Council. That's with the Shaw Trust and also CAMS, where we directly support the most vulnerable children in Somerset and has been seen as a leading model nationally. Somerset Council's Children's Social Care has an emotional health and well-being team, which is also supported by CAMS. This team supports foster carers, children in care, with their emotional health and well-being concerns through consultation with experts in the area. As part of our Connect Somerset work on Help for All, we have this a promotion, if you like. We actively promote take-up of local services, such as Kooth, which is an online mental health and well-being app, and also we use, as any good authority would, the Solihull approach to parenting and parent support training. Our health visiting service, health visiting service identifies and supports paternal and maternal health issues, mental health issues, and the chat online service supported by school nursing is available to provide advice to parents and children on a wide range of health issues, including promoting emotional health and well-being. We also offer direct work to children and families via our allocated family intervention service workers, our FIS workers and social workers. The family safeguarding model in Somerset works with parents around their own mental health, substance misuse and domestic abuse, as well as supporting children. So we're also expanding and recommissioning the Young Carer Service, which supports the emotional well-being of young carers, of whom there are too many really. We don't know all of them yet. We try to find them all across our county. And we are planning to link up the current mental health support teams in schools with our Parent Family Support Advisor Service to maximise the mental health support available for pupils and their family. It's what we could kind of bring together as a list. There's probably more we're doing, but they're the headlines for us. All of these services are underpinned by effective partnership working between the Council, the NHS and other partners in communities. And we recognise that effectively supporting children's well-being is a whole system issue as well as a whole council issue. We continue to be collectively committed to supporting the emotional and well-being of our Somerset children and young people, and also about that preventative agenda, because we all believe that children deserve to get that help and that support before they're in crisis and not wait until they are. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Tom Power.
Thank you, Chair. My question is regarding the Glastonbury Festival and the comments that were made on the stage. So given Glastonbury Festival is our premier cultural event in Somerset, many residents were shocked at the comments made on one of the stages and broadcast by the BBC. As the licensing authority to this festival, would the administration make it very clear where it stands on this matter and what it seems to be on the latest version of the oldest hate?
Federica.
Thank you, Chair. So the leader of the council wrote to the organisers of Glastonbury Festival prior to the event, reminding them of Somerset Council's commitment to debate, not hate, and asking them to factor in the safety of all who were in attendance, performers, staff and audience. The specific matter in question is currently under active police investigation. In line with our commitment to due process and transparency, the Council will not make any public comment or take licensing-related actions until the police have concluded their inquiries. A multi-agency debrief will be convened to assess the circumstances in full as part of that debrief process. At that stage, the Council will consider whether any licensing conditions were breached, particularly in relation to the prevention of crime and disorder. Legal advice may be sought to determine whether a formal review under the Licensing Act 2003 is warranted. Until then, the Council will maintain a holding position and refrain from speculation or premature conclusions. This approach ensures fairness, protects the integrity of the investigation and aligns with our responsibilities under the Statement of Licensing Policy 23 to 2028.
Thank you. Jill Slocum.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. Excuse my glasses. I had my cataracts done and can't see a thing. But anyway, I'm asking the question is, what is the lead member going to do about to ensure that residents of elderly, vulnerable or digitally excluded can access council services without facing long delays or being forced online and they have no idea? Especially when, you know...
Press the right one.
Sorry, I'm full now. And they have no mobile. They're spending hours on the phone trying to get help. And this is borne about by an 87-year-old who I had to go in and pay her, I paid her a green bin online because she had, for 3 hours, had tried separately to try to get some help. On Sedgemoor North, on Somerset North, there is a once-a-month meeting for 2 hours until 11 o'clock, which has caused many people distress because elderly people, they forget what day it is. And I do think having that closed down on a Monday morning for 2 hours is really not conducive. So what I'm really saying is that we have lots and lots of elderly people really, really worried. Now, I can't go paying everybody's bill. I don't mind helping a few, and I did get the money back. But the distress, this is a lady that was a matron of a hospital. This is a very astute woman who feels terribly vulnerable, feels quite stupid. But the staff, I got to say, were wonderful. When they opened up, they collected all the people and they helped them. They were absolutely brilliant. And also, can I say, the security man who tried to do his very, very best to help people. But it's not right to have that closed on a Monday morning for 2 hours, I would say. And could I also say, can we please find a way to help our elderly, and not just only elderly, but people who just cannot, who are not digitally inclusive at all, please. Thank you, Chairman.
Federica.
Oh, sorry.
So I think there's two aspects to your question, Councillor Slocum. I think firstly around that closure of the customer service hub to allow training, and it's always a balance between doing training alongside then obviously serving our residents. That's something that we can take away and have a think about, and I'll speak to the service who are actually on meeting this Friday. I think when it comes to then the wider piece about getting people to engage digitally, we do recognise not everyone can do that. Digital transformation is not about replacing traditional services, but enhancing our services and kind of promoting digital options. We will keep services accessible. We've got obviously the phone and in person, and we try to ensure that where there are digital barriers, we give help to people to access those services. We look to embed digital inclusion across all of our services, trying to make them universal. We're trying to look at providing training, design user-friendly platforms, and then maintain non-digital options, such as going into your library, to our community access points, or to our customer service points, to try and make sure that no one is excluded. I've got a really long answer that will come out in writing to you, but I'll give you a little synopsis now so that you've got that in the different ways that we do support the elderly and vulnerable and digitally excluded. Some of that is training at our library services. Our libraries do a great job at trying to access those who are most vulnerable across the county. We partner with some groups to redistribute laptops as well for those that struggle to access them for both many for financial reasons. We are understanding and trying to design our processes to take into account those vulnerabilities. If you look at our website, trying to make it simple to use as well. We've got those various customer service points across them, and then there's digital support at 32 locations, which is our library services as well. And then we've got building confidence at skills at community hubs and events, so like Spark IT and Learn My Way, which offer free digital skills training and support. Just in conclusion, we're committed to encouraging our residents to use digital channels where possible. For the likes of me, I love our website. I'm constantly on there logging. It works for myself, but I appreciate that it doesn't work for everyone. So it is about that balance. But I'll certainly pick up the Sedgemoor North opening times.
Just pick up one point. I'm being respectful to you. Just wanted to say that people you say phoning, this is people that don't have a clue about, they have no mobile phone, don't want to go on a website, but 3 hours spent on the phone trying to get through to people. That is something we've got to deal with. Thank you.
Thank you. David Fothergill's question. I know that, yes, would someone want to read it out on his behalf? Yes.
Thank you, Chair. David's apologised, he's had to step out. He's quite happy to take the question as read, but would like the answer so that his residents that have raised it as well can hear the answer. Thank you.
Yes, over to you again.
Thanks, Chair. So at Somerset Council, we acknowledge the growing concern within our communities and within the GRT community itself about the shortage of authorised pitches in the county, which has led to an increase in unauthorised encampments across the county this summer. This issue has been highlighted by residents, by parish and town councils and members of the GRT community. In response, we've initiated a review of potential sites. We've got site provisions and the impact of trying to bring transit sites online with Somerset. That's in its very early stages. This comprehensive effort will involve collaboration between lots of different teams within Somerset Council and external partners. So that is in its very early stages. I note in the question, there's a question about Middlezoy. I'll just pass over to Councillor Mike Rigby in relation to that because it was an asset disposal.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Federica. Yeah, I was a little perplexed by the suggestion that we could use the Middlezoy site, given that it was sold by the administration that Councillor Fothergill was part of in 2014. I was a then very new county councillor and was particularly annoyed at the disposal of that site because I was involved in getting it planning permission in the first place when I worked for Somerset County Council in the early 90s. It was a really hard-fought battle to get what was a very important facility off the ground. We struggle occasionally legally when we go to court to try and remove travellers and gypsies from unauthorised encampments because they're able to say, well, there isn't a transit site in Somerset. Well, there was, and it was sold in 2014.
Thank you. Moving on, Lucy, I don't think is here. Okay, Tom, you're going to take it. Cheers.
Yeah, so I'm reading this question on behalf of my colleague, Councillor Lucy Trimnall. On the 24th of February this year, the paper proposing the implementation of new and revised parking charges came to the Corporate and Resources scrutiny as item 8 on the agenda. Paragraph 17 stated, there remains the potential for city, town, parish councils to fund the Sunday parking charge in place of the customer should there be a desire to. Paragraph 28 stated, some parish council have historically paid the council a sum in order to retain free parking. We are working through the list of these and discussing with the lead member in this practice can continue with a revised figure to reflect the sum of income costs. As one of the two members representing Wincanton, a parish that pays to keep parking in the town free, I questioned at this meeting whether this potentially increased payment would be delayed until the next financial year to give Wincanton Town Council the chance to precept accordingly to cover an increased payment. This is because it appeared in the 25-26 budget was to include monies to collect the implementation of parking charges commencing in October 2025. The chairman of the Town Council has asked many of his contacts in the Liberal Democrat administration, including Councillor Wilkins, who is the lead member for Highways and Transport, whether it is true that parking charges will be implemented in Wincanton, and has told us that he is assured that there will be no parking charges in Wincanton. Would Councillor Wilkins be able to reassure Councillor Power and myself, 1, Wincanton will not have parking charges implemented in the town car parks, 2, that Wincanton Town Council will not be required to pay extra monies to Somerset Council to keep parking free in the town to reflect the sum of monies of income lost. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you for your question. I have been clear that if the town council would like to continue to pay to keep their parking free, this is something that can be agreed. but we will need to confirm that any income received from the town council payments covers these costs of operating and maintaining these car parks. Where I can put some real reassurance to you is that is that we have no intention of following the previous administration of Cornwall Council, who intended to sell or gift their car parks to a private consortium, and thus removing any control over pricing or further development. And it was fortunate that the current Cornwall Council has put a stop to that. Further work is required to understand the details of the parking arrangements on a town-by-town basis, and the first part of this will be to engage with local members and city and town parish councils to understand the details of any existing agreements in place, such as the one you have referred to in Wincanton. We are hopeful that we can start these discussions later this year, but we're not able to give a more detailed time frame as yet. I hope this explains our current position, but please be assured that no decisions will be made without further discussions with you as councillors and the town council, and full public consultation has taken place.
Thank you. Moving on to Diogo.
Thank you, Chair. The latest figures show a planning enforcement backlog of 873 cases, with staffing levels clearly insufficient to bring this under control. In fact, the number of enforcement cases resolved or closed between January and March 2025 has collapsed by 50% when compared to April to June 24. It seems like this is no longer a service under pressure, but one struggling to function. I do want to acknowledge the efforts of the enforcement officers currently in post. They are working hard in demanding circumstances, but it seems there aren't enough of them to bring this under control. For many parish councils, enforcement feels like an afterthought, but the consequences for many are rather serious. For example, I've received contact from a number of parish councils. Shipham Parish Council only received a substantive response to their enforcement complaints last month, nearly 2 years after they were first raised, and the situation there remains unresolved. In Cornton, Denham, Sparkford, Queen Camel and South Cadbury and Sutton Montis Parish Councils, concerns have been raised since 2023 about HGV tip trucks transporting demolition waste. Despite the persistent efforts of local councillors, key issues there remain unaddressed. And in Birtle, a mobile building that was subject to an enforcement notice due to expire in May 2022 still stands, but visibly decaying into the ground. Residents are being forced to live next to unlawful development and feel ignored. Parish councils are losing trust, and the people of Somerset are paying for a service that they are simply not receiving, and thus confidence in the system is eroding. We want the planning system in Somerset to work, so can the lead member tell us when Somerset Council expects to get on top of the planning enforcement backlog, and what's being done to fix the system and restore public confidence?
Mike Rigby.
Thank you, Chair, and many thanks to Councillor Rodriguez for acknowledging the efforts of the enforcement officers currently in post. I will be making some general comments in response to how the enforcement system is working at the moment in response to question 7, so Councillor Rodriguez will want to keep an ear out for that. But in relation to the examples cited here today, I would make the following comments. Firstly, with regard to Shipham Parish Council, there are 5 live enforcement cases in that parish. Enforcement action has been ongoing in respect of Longbottom Farm on the 2 main issues relating to the site, namely the consent for a holiday lodge and the siting of a mobile home. An application to regularise the access arrangements for the holiday lodge is expected shortly, and enforcement are taking action in relation to the mobile home. The original enforcement notice was complied with, but another mobile has been placed on the land and further action is now proposed. The enforcement team are well aware of the issues regarding HGV tipper trucks transporting demolition waste in the Corton, Denham, Sparkford, Queen Camel and South Cadbury and Sutton Montis area, and understand that the works have resulted in a high level of traffic on the highway. This has been the subject of 4 separate investigations, which have all concluded that there is no breach of planning control in connection with the site. The issue at Birtle is still under active investigation, and a further visit is to be undertaken to this site shortly.
Thank you. Dave Mansell.
Thank you. Mine is also on planning enforcement. I would be interested to know, with regard to the backlog of cases, I'm asking whether breakdowns can be provided for the 3 priority levels in each planning area, as shown in the question. Also, I would like to know, and this applies to the West area where I serve, why planning conditions on construction environmental management plans, which were a condition of planning, why they are not being required. And I feel I should just give a little bit of detail on that and what it has led to. In Wiveliscombe, last summer, we had a whole row of homes and gardens covered in dust from a construction site. Last autumn, same site led to our main road into the town being covered in mud and stones for 2 weeks. Now, if you come to Wiveliscombe, and we are currently enjoying tipper trucks, which are going through residential areas, past the primary school, and squeezing through our small town centre about every 2 minutes. That has been going on for the last week. We are more than a bit fed up with this. Harm and chaos is resulting from planning conditions not being enforced. I have to say I am very concerned about the poor planning enforcement service that is being provided. I would like to know what steps are being taken to improve what is, from what I can see, another broken system. Now, earlier it was referred to questions and answers. I've been in the position that I've seen the answer before I put the question. And I will quickly say I'm disappointed. Mike, I hope you will be going back to the service and ensuring that they do better.
Mike Rigby.
Thank you, Chair. Section 7 of Appendix 1 of the report to Strategic Planning Committee tomorrow, quarterly report on planning service performance, quarter 4 January to March 24 to 25, and quarterly report on planning service performance, quarter 4 January to March 24-25, Appendix 1, provides information for enforcement cases on hand and the number resolved and closed over the previous 4 quarters. This confirms that the service currently has 873 cases on hand, notwithstanding the closure of 833 cases over the previous 4 quarters. We do not currently collect information to provide a breakdown for the 3 priority levels set out in the enforcement policy. The enforcement team are, however, handling a number of high priority cases that are proceeding to court and are currently resulting in reduced capacity for the lower priority cases. Planning conditions on construction environmental management plans are imposed on a case-by-case basis when recommended either by Highways or Environmental Health as part of their consultation response, and if there is considered to be harm that could be mitigated through the use of those conditions. In the event of a breach of this condition, any enforcement complaint would be treated in accordance with the enforcement policy and the priority levels relative to other live cases. Often on active construction sites, contact is made with the developer to advise of the breach, impact is reduced, and then is frequently reported again following further breaches. In this case, the construction process is managed over a period of time. The structure of the enforcement service was agreed as part of the budget set for 25-26. The structure includes a team leader, enforcement and appeals, 4 senior enforcement officers, 4 enforcement officers and a graduate post. We currently have 2 vacant posts, which we were unsuccessful in filling following the recent recruitment exercise, and the service is also reliant on agency staff. A team leader, agency staff, started on the 14th of July, and we hope to fill the graduate post through the Pathways to Planning programme starting in September. Steps are being taken to put in place recruitment allowances in order to re-advertise the vacant posts using a talent spotter service. The service seeks to deliver in accordance with the enforcement policy agreed in February 2023 and to meet the standards set out in the policy. However, as set out above, the fact that the service is not fully staffed and is handling a number of high-profile cases means that this is not always possible. If members have issues with planning breaches to report, we would ask that these are raised using the online form, as this means that they can be properly tracked. And I say this very gently. I don't wish to try and avoid discussion of this in any way, but it's fair to say that every time we highlight publicly the difficulties that we're facing with the service, it makes it more difficult for us to recruit, and that'll only make things worse.
Thank you. Norman Cavill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The present Taunton Deane local plan expects West Monkton parish area to provide 4,500 new houses. The first phase of over 1,500 houses has now been completed and was expected to provide a number of benefits by 106 agreements. Well, an excellent primary school and community centre was being provided. However, many of the Section 106s have been watered down during the course of the development and have not been provided. In particular, there is no employment provision, sports pitches or shops. In the last 50 years, the Parish Council has worked well with Persimmon as the main developer, and in the most recent 3.5 years, with help from one of our very good planners, it's come to an agreement to take over the sports pitch area. That was August 23. By the way, the developer couldn't provide it because the cost had gone up to £1.6 million and they only had 400 in the Section 106 left. The Parish Council then applied for planning permission, and as part of their agreement with the developer, agreed to provide the roads and facilities. In the last 18 months, the Parish Council has completed work to make a rugby and a cricket pitch, which are presently without a suitable access for the public. We are without planning permission and no road, water, electric or drainage from the developer either. I believe these comments clearly demonstrate the issues that some 106s are being unprovided, some negotiated away, without reference to the Parish Council and the local community, and the inability for us to enforce their provision. My concerns are twofold. Can we please have your support, Mr. Rigby, to resolve the present planning situation? And the second is the next application, Monkton Heathfield 2 or Langalla Park, will shortly be arriving on our planners' desks. This is one of our first developments based on our Garden Town principles and therefore a bit of a flagship. And there's been much discussion as to the viability of the site. I'm therefore concerned for the development of the promised 106s. Can you ensure, and I know you've been asked this question in a different way, that our enforcement teams will be capable and have the ability to ensure delivery on these agreements on this future site and not leave others the legacy issues to resolve in 10 years' time?
Mike Rigby.
Thank you, Chair. Just to be clear, there was no legal obligation in the deed of variation for the construction of the road access, which was signed in July 2023, and so this is not a planning enforcement matter. Instead, there was a draft land transfer document where the road and services were to be provided by the transferor, in this case Persimmon, within 12 months to the Parish Council. To be clear, the transfer clause is not a planning clause, and so enforcement does not rest with the service. The delay is with Persimmon. We've made inquiries of the developer and we understand that they're looking to sign off and to commission the work shortly with a view to delivery in September. We also understand that Persimmon have been meeting with West Monkton Parish Council fortnightly, so they should be aware of the situation. The application for the change of 2 football pitches to rugby and cricket pitches and alterations to the access was initially subject to objections from the Highway Authority and from Sport England. The Highway Authority has worked with the Parish Council to agree a suitable scheme, and this permission is due to be issued imminently.
Thank you. Dawn Denton.
Thank you. It is now almost a year since Mayday was given the green light for the Saxon Vale proposal, yet Frome residents have seen no meaningful progress on the ground. While I anticipate phrases like ongoing negotiations, complex processes, and unforeseen challenges may be used to justify the lack of visible delivery, can the executive explain, A, why Mayday continues to be granted such extensive leeway despite missed milestones and increasing public frustration, and B, how this aligns with the Council's duty to ensure timely, transparent and accountable use of public land and taxpayer interests in the spirit of a fairer Somerset. And the reason we all ask questions in this public forum is not for our own knowledge necessarily, or just to satisfy our curiosity, but it's simply questions that our residents have asked us to ask in a public forum for a public response. Thank you.
Mike Rigby.
Thank you, Chair. The Executive made a resolution to proceed towards a sale of the Saxon Vale site to Mayday Saxon Vale Limited just under 6 months ago on the 23rd of January 2025. Whilst not the 12 months mentioned in the question, the Executive does share Councillor Denton's frustration at the continued delay in completing this sale. We appreciate the community's patience and passion for this site, and we remain committed to facilitating a scheme that Frome can be proud of. The Council issued a draft contract of sale to the purchaser on the 28th of February this year, ahead of a proposed completion by the 31st of March. Discussions have been ongoing, complex and challenging, and we've not been offering leeway without scrutiny. Unfortunately, and it is disappointing for all involved, the purchaser has not yet been able to provide tangible evidence of funding to complete the sale. The Council remains committed to ensuring that public land is used responsibly and in a way that delivers long-term value for the community. Mayday's innovative proposal and delivery model seeks to recycle profit back into the development and was seen as a unique opportunity for the redevelopment of the site, adding value back into the community that would not be achieved through a traditional development. The offer still represents best consideration for the Council, its taxpayers and the residents of Frome, and because of this we've continued dialogue with Mayday in the hope and anticipation that the sale can be completed. We are working to balance the need for timely delivery with the importance of getting this project right. The Council is currently considering an alternative funding proposal from Mayday alongside the original, with a meeting taking place this afternoon. However, we've tasked officers with starting work on a contingency plan should the sale fall through. Any alternative proposals, whether from Mayday or a Council decision to pursue a different route to disposal, would need to come back to Executive Board for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Finally, I know, Diogo, you're going to read out the question that Sue has put.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this is a question from Councillor Sue Osborne. Thank you for taking the question, although it was originally rejected, but thank you, Chair, for accepting it. So the question from Sue: as part of the draft transformation plan report submitted to Executive, it was stated in paragraph 13, final sentence of that report, that despite the development of initial transformation and savings plans during 24-25, these did not deliver a balanced budget for 25-26 or the full MTFS period. The savings target for 25-26 is 45 million. So how are you proposing to achieve that target? What is the proportion of the 45 million savings planned to be raised from transformation savings, and how much from the business as usual savings? How do you intend to ensure that the target is met, and what steps will be taken in the event that the target becomes in danger of not being achieved for the 25-26 financial year? And in the event that the savings target for 25-26 is not met, what are the implications for the 26-27 savings target of £101 million, of which we haven't had complete assurance that itself will be met, and the remainder of the MTFS period? And how will these implications be dealt with and the targets kept on track? Thank you.
Thank you. Theo.
Thank you very much. There's one thing more frustrating than having your question rejected until the last minute. It's finding out at the last minute that you have to answer it. The savings for the financial year 25-26 this year are included in detail line by line in Appendix B of the budget passed by the Council in March of this year. These are monitored throughout the year and will be appearing in the quarterly reports. The largest part of those savings, of course, is the workforce savings, which we are all very well versed in, which are in excess of £30 million. If we include those in transformation, which I do, then the vast majority are from transformation. Other elements of transformation within the savings are detailed in business cases for individual work streams, which also fall under Phase 1 transformation plan, and were supported by the flexible use of capital receipt strategy and the capitalisation direction. To ensure delivery of the savings targets, the Council is taking the following steps. Robust governance, a strengthened programme of management approach is in place with the oversight from the internal assurance boards along with scrutiny and the executive. Risk management, a comprehensive risk review was conducted in early 2025 with action agreed to address the key delivery risks including internal controls, data use and risk treatment strategies. Performance monitoring, regular tracking of savings delivery against targets with early identification of underperformance, and mitigation planning, where savings are at risk, alternative or compensatory savings plans will be activated, and escalation routes are in place to ensure timely intervention. Failure to meet the 2025-26 target would, of course, increase pressure on the 2026-27 saving requirement, increasing our reliance on reserves or further capitalisation direction, which is not sustainable in the long run. To mitigate this risk, the Council is accelerating the development of Phase 2 transformation programme, including ensuring that it is fully aligned with the 2026-27 MTFP priorities, embedding a culture of financial accountability across all service areas and maintaining flexibility in the transformation portfolio to reallocate resources and adjust priorities as needed.
Thank you. That concludes the questions. Can I just remind councillors that the exec now has a section of it for questions to the executive, and also that the exec members are here an hour before these meetings. So just before the 2-hour mark, that concludes the businesses today. So I close the meeting and